But I always like to catch up with Bjorn Lomborg. He's the president of the Copenhagen Consensus. He joins us from that ARC conference in London. Good to talk to you again, Bjorn. I was talking at the top of the program about an issue that I've discussed with you in the past and you've written again about recently, and that is just a reminder of how good it is to be alive in the 21st century on all those measures about economic success and rates of poverty and lifespans and even climate. You know, we're constantly bombarded with catastrophism, but this is a good time to be alive, right?
It totally is. And it's incredibly important for people to know because a lot of people are really, really scared today for a lot of different reasons, mostly because you're being told constantly the world is coming to an end, things are falling apart. And look, as you mentioned, we live much, much longer. This year, we'll live 73 years on average on this planet. In 1900, the number was 32. We've got more than 2 lifetimes. But also, as you mentioned, for instance, on climate, it's actually such that, yes, climate change is a real problem, but because we're richer, because we're more resilient, we're much better able to handle most of the things that climate throw our way. So if you look at climate catastrophes, we've actually seen a decline of 98% over the last century or so. It used to be like about 500,000 people die from climate-related disasters like floods, droughts, storms, and wildfires. Today, that number is down below 10,000 each year.
I think the other interesting thing, Bjorn, is we know what's delivered this. It's not a secret what's delivered this. The reason we have more money, more food, more security is largely things like good governance, law and order, people having private property rights, encouraging enterprise. If you can deliver those basics, guess what? Human ingenuity delivers.
Yes, and that, of course, means if you actually want to help the many poor people in the world, it's about making sure you listen to what they're saying. What are the big issues? It's not predominantly climate. Yes, they also concerned about climate, but they're much more concerned about the fact that their kids still die from easily curable infectious diseases. They don't have enough food. They don't have good education. And those are simple things we know how to fix at very low cost and with incredibly high efficiency. So again, I want us to stop worrying. I mean, we should be worried about the real things, but we should recognize that fundamentally things are going better and better. And then you can start focusing on the things where you can actually make a huge difference, as you just mentioned, about getting law and order, about getting good governance, about getting the things that really underpin global prosperity.
Well, let me turn this on its head a bit then and be very pessimistic, because I would argue, and certainly the facts bear out, I'm certain you would agree with this, one of the things that's underpinned our great prosperity and the benefits of our civilization has been the invention and spread of cheap, reliable energy. And with our climate policies now, we are undermining cheap, reliable energy right around the world. And couldn't that undo a lot of the great benefits of prosperity and civilization that we've created?
It can certainly make a lot of harm. I actually think the engine of growth that we've seen is so strong that we're going to struggle to really undo it. What we'll do is make it slower, make progress a lot slower. And that by itself, of course, is terrible. But what we really need to recognize, you also point out, the fact that you have much and abundant and cheap and reliable energy is what has made pretty much everything we like about civilization possible. So telling the rest of the world, which, remember, a lot of people, about half the world's population, need much, much more energy, telling them, I'm sorry, we've used up our ecological space, you'll just have to get used to being poor. That is not a solution. First of all, they're not actually going to do this, but also it would be humanitarianly absolutely horrible to do so. So what we need to recognize is, yes, people are going to use more fossil fuels. That'll actually be great for them in most senses. What we need to do is to focus on spending much more investment into energy innovation so that we can get green energy eventually to be cheaper than fossil fuels, so that everyone will switch, not just rich, well-meaning Australians or Americans or Europeans, but also the Chinese, the Indians, and the Africans.
Just when it comes to land use and the environment, there's starting to be a lot of blowback in Australia against offshore wind turbine projects, against transmission projects to link in renewable schemes, against solar farms, wind farms. It's playing havoc with all sorts of rural and agricultural communities. This is happening around the world too. It highlights that there's a huge cost in land use and amenity when it comes to renewable energy.
Oh, there's absolutely a huge cost. Now, look, what we can do is to focus on what are the smart solutions. So obviously we should embrace more nuclear because that's a way to get baseload power and actually get safe and reasonably cheap and certainly low CO2 energy. We should also focus on innovation so that we can make all of these things much cheaper. One of them could be to make offshore energy much cheaper. If we can make it actually so cheap that it'll be competitive, great, let's do it. But that's not what it is right now. Right now is mostly just a subsidy machine for a lot of rich investors.
Great to talk to you again, Bjorn. Appreciate it.
Wonderful to talk to you.
Bjorn Lomborg, such an informed view of the challenges the world faces. Can you believe that we're going to set up a centre for his centre in Australia, but too many people arced up about it? How pathetic. He's at that meeting in London, that conference of the Alliance for Responsible Citizenship.